Hello, it's Tristan here from Zebra Invest, and today I've got a cracking video all about opportunities that are lying all around the country and are great opportunities for you to title split, convert, or turn back into residential properties. So now, hopefully I've got your attention. What am I talking about? I'm talking about guest houses. So I'm sure you remember when you were younger, you were taken away on a nice little weekend away, and it wasn't into some lovely bougie Airbnb that's got lovely feature panel walls on it, nice little hot tub outside. No, it would have been a guest house where you've got, say, three beds all in one bedroom. Your parents have got a bed, one for you and one for your brother. Well, that was certainly the case for me. And we've been to all these places up and down the country. Well, I say all these places, we went to a few, and we usually get dragged along with my dad to do some work. Anyway, but these guest houses are now sitting all dotted around the country, and obviously where Airbnb and short-term lets have increased in demand, and you've also seen the likes of professional hotels like Premier Inn, Travelodge, and chains pop up all around the country. The demand for those cheap, low-end properties in the city centres or town centres has certainly dropped off. You may have seen there's been quite a few who've tried and used like the hotel inspector and re-jazz themselves to come to a beautiful place, almost boutique, where you'd want to go and stay. But there are quite a few that slip through the nets. And these are the properties that are kind of sitting right in the city centre. So, for example, in Norwich, we've got one called the Central Hotel. There's also the Riverside Hotel, there's the Marlborough Lodge. There's quite a few all dotted round close to the train station with easy access to get into the city. But these are the kind of properties that are, in recent years have struggled because no longer do they have, in comparison to the new build properties where they've got nice sound insulation, decent sized bathrooms, independent heating or air conditioning. They just aren't in these properties. So they've retrofitted and added in ensuite bathrooms and all the extra facilities that you would hope to expect in a modern property. So these old guest houses, they're perfect really for converting from what they were but over into residential properties. And what do I mean by this? It's effectively title splitting or subdividing the properties. So one or two people always try and say, if it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, then it probably is a duck. And that's to describe kind of property. So if you look at a guest house, in a lot of cases, they were originally a house that could be over quite a few floors, or only over two, and they've got two side by side or three side by side. And eventually you've ended up with a row or a set of houses that have all come together and be turned into a guest house. So these can be really good little opportunities to be able to convert. And what I mean is the perfect and easiest way to do this is through a vertical split. So if you've got a house where it looks like you've got one house on one side, one house on another, and they're next door to each other, it's really easy to get your planning permission through to be able to convert them back into houses, because at one point they were houses. And the other bit is actually for your building regulations, the amount of work that you've got to get through to be able to convert these into two separate buildings is going to be a bit less. Granted, you need to get them all up to the latest energy performance certificates and the standards there, but actually the sound insulation only needs to be on those party walls, the walls between you and your neighbour. And so you've got to get that sound insulation in between those. But it does make it quite a little bit easier because you don't have the fire break through each of the floor where you might be converting them into flats. So I've actually done this recently and agreed, as I said, a property in Norwich where we're going to be converting it into two properties. It's currently got a whopping 17 bedrooms, but it means it can turn into a 9-bedroom HMO and a 7-bedroom HMO, which would be great for an income down the line. It could also quite nearly convert into flats, but the amount of effort it's going to take this property apart and convert it into flats, simply in my area, isn't going to be worth it. But whereas you might look in, say, higher value areas where you've got an old guest house, and it could be a really good opportunity for actually going back and converting those into flats, because if that's what your area suits, it could work really well. The only downside is you have to consider whenever you're converting any kind of property into residential is how much parking it's got. And in this case, with guest houses, they tend to be pretty central. And this is where you can be onto a bit of a winner, because if they are pretty central and they're, say, near a train station, they're near bus links, then you might only need to allow for bike parking and bin storage, which means that you don't have to have the allowance for maybe one parking space per every two, per property, or 2 or 3 people. You just don't need those requirements for the area. And especially if you think just how many people would have been coming and staying in those properties beforehand. And we also recently took a look at one up in Leiston, which is just near a new nuclear power plant. And again, they've closed that place down. But in that case, that property would be ideal for converting from a guest house into little micro apartment hotel where you have each of the rooms has its own little studio area, so that people who are working in areas all the time could really suit. So the other side of it is you could think these properties might be in a decent area, because a lot of them are, that might also work as a really nice family house, because sometimes actually looking at the least challenging path of resistance is going to be the easiest way to get it through planning, because at the moment you do require planning permission if you are going to convert a guest house to residential. Now this is where it gets a little bit easier. Hopefully it's going to be getting a little bit easier. In about 2023, the government announced they were going to investigate and look into issuing permitted development rights to allow you to convert from C1, which is what hotels and guest houses stick into, to C3, which is residential. So hopefully that all goes through, and then there should be, I'm hoping, a nice little gold rush on being able to find these guest houses all around the country, ones that have been underutilized, that people aren't living in or people aren't staying in anymore, and they could really be turned around. So the perfect opportunity is right now, because if we know that these permitted development opportunities are just around the corner, if you can go out and be starting to have those conversations, get talking to people, then kind of link up to get those guest houses moving through, then you'll be at the first place to be able to start converting those into HMOs, or maybe even into, apart hotels or into family properties. Anyway, I hope this gives you a great idea, something that you can kind of work on. They're quite easy properties to work on and go from there. If you've got any comments or any questions about this, I'm just getting started on my first one, but jump in the comments below, let me know what you think. Hopefully you like this video. If you do like this video, I release plenty more of them, so please subscribe to my channel and keep you updated. Cheers, guys.